Hello everyone, Todd Black here again for part 2 of my more personal Spirit of Earth video series. Spirit of Earth, of course, what I hope will be the third Avatar series. And we've already, in the last week since I posted the last video, we've done a couple of amazing things. We've gotten some more artists on board to help draw some stuff, so I hope to be posting stuff about that soon. And our intro video for Avatar Spirit of Earth has hit 1,600 views on YouTube, which for me is absolutely unprecedented. But as is video series and title will tell you, I'm here to focus on something else. And that is what a lot of you actually have pointed out to me through various mediums and readings, that parts of Spirit of Earth cannot be canon. Thus, in whole, right now, Spirit of Earth cannot be canon. And this is absolutely true. And for anyone who's actually read Spirit of Earth, first of all, again, thank you. But if you haven't, I recommend you read that because I will be going to slightly spoilerish territory for my story. If that doesn't bother you, then by all means, keep watching. But for any of you who actually read, you'll know that that first paragraph on the first page of Spirit of Earth is from me personally saying, hey, I wrote this at the end of season 1 of Legend of Korra, and I finished it at the end of season, a little after season 2. I actually finished it entirely on December 31st, 2013. Yes, it's been now officially over a year since I finished Spirit of Earth, kind of. And so a lot has changed, and by a lot we mean 2 seasons, crammed into 5 months. So a lot has changed, and a lot has affected Spirit of Earth. So the question is, why am I still pushing for this if technically Spirit of Earth can't be what it is in its entirety? And that's the simple answer is that doesn't bother me, because I've already thought of a lot of the changes that will need to happen to be canon, be fixed, however, what have you. But there's also a little more fun to this that I will get to at the end. But for now, I'm here to address the 6 or 7 biggest changes that will need to be made. I actually have a list right here, so I'm not just ad-libbing this. So I will break this down. I will tell you what the problem is, recap why it's a problem, and then I will tell you how I actually already have an idea to fix it. So let's start at the beginning. Wow, what do you know? It's actually called Beginnings. Yes, Beginnings changed a lot of things. And by beginnings, I don't mean the beginning of Spirit of Earth, because to be honest, I think my first 3 chapters are both very, very fun and very, very unique and don't need to be changed very much. Obviously, some dialogue can be altered and tiny plot points can be added in, more or less, but the first 3 chapters are more or less perfect to me, and only to me. Those don't need to be changed. When I say beginnings, I mean like Book 2, Legend of Korra beginnings, as in Wan beginnings, as in Rava and Vaatu and the Lion Turtles and everything else. You see, when I wrote Spirit of Earth, again, this was a majority of it was honestly written during the whole 425 days we were waiting for Book 2 to come out. And so around March of 2013, I wrote a chapter in Book 2 of Spirit of Earth called The Beginning of It All. It was my origin story to the world, to the Avatar, to a lot of things in my story. And then, like 3 months later, we got word that Wan was going to be the first Avatar, and we were going to get the whole origin story for everything. So I waited and I watched, and much to my surprise, me, and then Brian and Mike had totally different ideas on how to introduce the world and the Avatar. So that part is actually really, really cool, because I think that just shows how creative we all are, because we thought 2 entirely different things. But obviously, since now Wan is canon and my story, Beginning of It All, is not, I have to change it, and which does hurt a little, because that chapter really is a catalyst for everything that is to follow in Book 2 and Book 3 and Book 4. However, it doesn't need to be completely retcon. Let me explain. I defined the beginning of it all as 10,000 years before Ray's time, and which is roughly what Korra did as well. They did 10,000 years first Avatar. So for me to both keep things streamlined, not make a lot of changes and everything, what I would do is just say, okay, we'll chop that in half. It's 5,000 years in the past. There is an Avatar, but there is a, let's just say, event that causes him, or her, I haven't decided yet, to reopen the portals, just like Korra did. And spirits come in, and then everything else kind of sort of plays out the same. They do not get along, they have a war, things get bad, things get very, very ugly. And then the Avatar, in his state of remorse and regret, closes the portals again. And then, to play along with my story, the generations decide never to speak of this war again because they hate what they did. They deem it too painful to watch or to remember, and so they don't speak of it. And thus, this secret war, as what will probably be called the title now instead of the beginning of it all, this secret war will now be forgotten in history, including to our Avatar, because if you remember, the Avatar line's not here anymore, which is another point I'm going to get to. So right there, I have explained how there could be a human spirit or a second human spirit war. I explain why it's important. The seals, which any of you know of Spirit of Earth know what the seals are. Those will still be in play, and everything more or less will get to be the same, obviously, outside of some dialogue. And Swift will still be a very important part of the Secret War, as he'll probably now be an advisor to the Avatar, saying, hey, we need you to get involved in this. Whereas my idea is the Avatar chooses not to get involved in the war because there really isn't a right or a wrong in it, but Swift convinces the Avatar, hey, we need this to stop. You have to do this. And so thus why his connection to the Avatar is still very, very strong, because instead of creating the Avatar, he helped stop a war with the Avatar. Thus, he knows the Avatar is the key to peace on both worlds. Cool? All right. Now, this obviously brings up the second big point, which is the spirits / the spirit portals. Didn't see those coming either. Yeah, that's the thing. You're probably wondering, why did you write all this if you knew that a lot of this could be reckoned? Why not? Right? I mean, sometimes you just can't foresee things. I mean, I'm sure even as us fans, there are things that we didn't foresee. And so I wrote my Spirit of Earth thinking, okay, I'll do the best I can, and then I'll change what I need to. And that's what I'm doing here. So anyway, spirit portals. I actually just explained kind of how this whole spirit war got started, which is a big part of Spirit of Earth. And obviously, in Korra, the spirits are now an ever-present thing. But if you read Spirit of Earth, you notice that they're kind of not there. And I offhandedly mention, via Swift, that once Korra died, they all went away. That doesn't exactly apply now because Korra was gone for like 3 years in Book 4, and yet the spirits are still around. So how do I define this? Well, honestly, this really doesn't change too much if you really think about what happened at the end of Book 2 with the spirit portals opening. Who decided that the spirit portals were ready to be opened? It was Korra. And yet in Book 3 and Book 4, you honestly didn't see that much interaction with the spirits and the humans. Yes, they were there. Yes, they were around. And yes, there was even the spirit wilds where humans and spirits can interact. But we didn't see this on a grand scale. And if you remember, especially in Book 3, I believe, a lot of humans honestly didn't partake to having a lot of spirits around. Like, remember one guy like literally sweeping them out of the store and saying no spirits allowed, human customers only, and all that. Well, I'm thinking like in the years after the end of Book 4 of Korra, this really starts to become an issue. The spirits decide, hey, this isn't really working out. The humans say we don't want any part of the spirits, and so my thinking is they ask Korra, as a two different species, to close the portals once again. Because again, this was really only her idea, and a lot of fans have pointed this out. Why did Korra think it was a great time to bring the spirits back? And this gets compounded in Book 4 when Korra asked the spirits for help to defend Republic City, and they didn't do anything. So not only does that add to, the resentment between these two races, this helps my story because part of my conspiracy is that the conspiracy hate that the spirits don't get involved in human affairs. They don't like having these entities that just watch or just interact or just live in their world willy-nilly. That's why they want to get rid of them. See, spoilers. And thus, the conspiracy decided to try and wipe them all out. With this helps that. Because, yes, the spirit portals open. That will actually help fuel their anger towards the spirits. And then, with them closed, only a few select spirits will be able to come back, which has happened before. If you remember Winter Solstice and other certain characters, some will still be able to cross over, and some will actually probably still be living in the world, thanks to Korra, with Korra's permission. But now that it's been 80 years and bad things happening, you know, there's the imbalance that I referenced with Swift. There's still a lot that can happen. So not much needs to change there. Now, one thing that does need to change is the sense of scale, and this is totally on me. If you recall, I have roughly 15, 16, 17 spirits that get captured in Spirit of Earth. Obviously, there's like hundreds of thousands more. So one thing I would do is I'd still have those 17 core spirits that Ray needs to save, but I'd also have, you know, groups of spirits being captured, you know, ones that don't talk, you know, just, you know, the cute little spirits like the ones Cora met in book 4 and everything, showing that there is a grander scale here. Because if you say, oh, I captured 17 spirits, yes, they're going to notice, but does it really matter in the grand scale? With this, I'll show grander scale, you know, draining of their energies, much like the spirit mines, which is two totally different things, by the way. So that's a big thing, but the core of it is the spirit war, and that did not happen in any of the books, technically, not, at least not in the scale that I had. So that really doesn't need to be changed, which is another video entirely. So I shall move on. What's the third one? Airbenders. Wow, really didn't see that one coming. I mean, I interviewed Janet Varney and I didn't see that coming. What can I say? The Airbenders are back, and in Spirit of Earth, I actually referenced that, you know, Aina, our resident Airbender, is a descendant of Aang. Now, obviously, while that can still hold true, it doesn't necessarily mean it has to be true. I did that because, you know, if you add 80 years to the Legend of Korra, which is where I say Spirit of Earth takes place, you know, you have Jinora, Ikki, Milo, and Rohan, who we think may or may not be an Airbender. We never really got confirmation on that. You know, that's 80 years to their lives. They're either dead or grandparents, really, really old grandparents. So they probably have grandchildren, which would have been Aina in my version. So naturally, that has changed because with all the new Airbenders and possible new Airbenders, we honestly never got confirmation that, you know, this will be a continuous effect, but we're hoping. So with all of the new blood, if you will, there's probably a lot more Airbenders 80 years into the future. That's great. I actually love that because it actually helps with me, because now Aina is going to have to be a little bit more cautious because she's not part of airbending culture. I'm not going to spoil the big shock if you haven't read it yet, but Aina is not part of airbending culture yet. She still wears the garb because it helps her get around. It helps her, you know, get information that she needs. But because she's not with the culture, it affects her personality. And every time you mention airbending culture around Aina, she kind of gets sad and everything. But now, if there's more airbenders around, she's going to be really cautious to not be seen, because one of them might recognize her and it'll raise a whole bunch of questions, and a lot of bad things could happen. So that is actually something I will get to play up. But also, this will help in the conspiracy, because if there's a lot more airbenders, there's a lot more potential for some of them to be bad. And you say, well, wait a minute, airbenders aren't bad. Yes, they can be. They are still human. I don't care what kind of how you raise them, how you train them. There's still potential for evil here, and that's why in the conspiracy there is a member of the Airbending clan in them, and he's actually really high ranking. But with more Airbenders, we have the potential for more of them, and it'll actually help turn the Air Nation against the Avatar, something that you obviously just can't do with a word. So there's that. So that's honestly one of the lesser ones, but it's one that I really think will have a big impact on my story now. So there you go. Next one. This one I'm honestly a little sad about. The Earth Kingdom. At the end of Legend of Korra, of course, Wu, the character I absolutely cannot stand, mentioned that he was going to do his best to try to actually dissolve the monarchy and thus make the Earth Kingdom more or less like the Earth States or something, or Earth Provinces, however you would like to call them. I would call them Earth States for the rest of this video. I'm sad about that because I really like the Earth Kingdom. I had a bunch of Earth Kingdom references in Spirit of Earth. And of course, if you pay attention, I have like 2 Earth Kings in my time in Spirit of Earth. However, this does not cripple my story for 3 reasons. Number 1, just because they're Earth States doesn't mean, or just because it could be Earth States doesn't mean they necessarily made it that way. Okay? Yes, Wu said, I want to dissolve the monarchy. Let's say he did. Does that mean that they actually survived on their own for 80 years and didn't become the Earth Kingdom again? We don't know, because again, that was just a spoken word. We didn't get to see it happen. Now let's say it did happen. This will go to point number 2. This doesn't affect it as a whole, because just like take our United States, you know, we're still one nation, you know, under Avatar. uh, and they may still answer some. It may not be an Earth King. Maybe it's an Earth President, like what Raikau is in Republic City. Ba Sing Se could be their capital, if you will. We don't know. We don't have any information on that. But either way, there could still be a leader to rule them all. Just from Lord of the Rings, I didn't mean to do that. So there's that. But finally, the thing that really doesn't make this not as significant is that the conspiracy wants to infiltrate every layer of government, every layer of culture to make sure that their plan succeeds. Well, with the Earth King, that's a little tricky because unless you have the Earth King, the best you can get is the advisors, the generals, and some of his supporters, which they do, and they are eventually able to move him out. Spoilers, but with this, it's actually a little bit easier because now you can infiltrate a whole bunch of people across, I think it was, what was like 10, 15, 20 provinces, states that we saw Kuvira try and take over. So they infiltrate all of those. Then once they make their move, all of them are now in power. And then they can say, you know what, how did Palpatine say it? For the security and safety of our people, we decided to reform the Earth Kingdom. Or, you know, put it under a more centralized leadership, you know, however you want to define it. Thus, the people will no doubt love them for it because they've done no wrong since the beginning of all this. And thus, it all stays intact. Remember, it doesn't need to be the Earth King that rules it because he's not the big bad here. All that matters to me is Ba Sing Se, which will obviously still be there. And like I said, I think that could be the capital like our Washington, D.C. That there are leaders in charge, and there are. It's going to be governments or regions, or governors or regions, or however you want to define them. And as long as they can still be corrupted, which they can, my conspiracy still holds power. So there you go. Now the next one is an obvious one, and it's one that I intentionally did not touch for story reasons, because of Legend of Korra still going on, and that's Republic City. Republic City obviously was a big focus for, you know, roughly, you know, 2.5, 3 books. You know, it was where book 1 took place in almost its entirety. And I knew that when I started writing Spirit of Earth, because, you know, this is right after book 1, I did not want any part of Republic City. I barely referenced it. I barely touched it. In fact, if you pay attention, I'm pretty sure the only time I mentioned Republic City is when Aang arrives and she said, "Hey, I want to take you right to Republic City so you can be trained by the Airbenders." So why did I do that? Because I didn't want to quote something I said earlier, I didn't want to jinx it all. I didn't want to go to Republic City, have a big adventure for Rey, then, you know, in book 2 or 3 or 4, something big with Korra happens there, and it just completely negates the story, and then I would have a really big ripple effect. Unlike these, which was at best minor to slightly major ripples. So I intentionally stayed out of Republic City, which I think was important, because if you think about it, you know, what was The Last Airbender all about? It was about the Fire Nation and what was happening in the Fire Nation, and then eventually the fights in the Fire Nation. Korra didn't go to the Fire Nation. The best she got was halfway across the ocean before she got swallowed by the Dark Spirit, so they didn't touch that. They didn't even show the Fire Empress, Lordess, Zuko's daughter, until book 4. So, you know, that just shows, hey, we respect what we did in TLA, and it's time not to touch that. I'm doing the same thing here. Now, obviously, Republic City probably will have a bigger impact in 80 years, especially with what happened at the finale. So, no doubt it'll have to be referenced more, possibly shown a little more influence, probably have a member of the conspiracy, or 4 or 5, you know, in there, you know, showing their loyalty to the greater evil. So, that will have to be in there if this was to be made. But, again, it's not, what's that word? Don't you hate it when you can't think of the word? It's not, you know, immediate. It's not a thing that, you know, this has to happen now because it ruins the whole story. It's not. But I recognize that Republic City being what it is, and the expansion we are told about at the end of Korra needs to happen. So, now on to the last 2 things. Can you believe we're almost done? It's only been 20 minutes. The Avatar state and the Avatar line. This is one thing that, again, is not like, you know, groundbreaking. You know, it doesn't like shatter the mold that is Spirit of Earth, but it is important. But it's important the way that actually helps me out a lot. As we all know, and as fans still lament, we have lost the Avatar line. Aang, Roku, Kyoshi, all of them are gone. And we're not 99% most likely we will not ever see them again. But that does not mean that the Avatar line is completely gone. It just means that there's only Korra left. Or at least we surmise, because she still has Rava in her. So when the line is restarted with Korra, and obviously now with Rey, Korra's the only one he's got. Korra's the only Avatar he can talk to. And I make references when I think I'm Rey all the time. When Rey gets the Avatar state, I reference, the numerous lives of the Avatar coming to him and, giving him the power to do what needs to be done, because the Avatar state is actually a big part of Spirit of Earth. But obviously that can't happen now, because now only Korra is there, which is perfect for me. Why? Because I wanted to develop this bond between Rey and Korra, because they are alike in a lot of ways, but they are different in a lot of ways. And that really comes to light in the 2 or 3 conversations I have them together in, which is totally fun to write. And so with them, now being technically the only 2 avatars that can talk to each other, there's going to be a lot of fun references. And I actually reference it a little unintentionally when Rey asked for Korra's help. It's like, I don't know what to do here. I need some good advice. And she goes, wow, this Aang was a lot better than this than I was. And that's the thing. It's like, if the Avatar line was still there, she could have said, here, let me bring over Aang. He can talk to you. Aang, get over here. But instead, it's like, I'm all you got, kid. And Rey respects that, because he respects what Korra did and has done, and that she was the Avatar before him, and he relies on her a lot. And that's a bond I really would like to develop here, kind of like what Aang had with Roku, but with now a little more personal touch of my own personal touch, because he actually sees her as kind of like I don't know, like a big sister, an aunt, or whatever you say, instead of like a mentor, what Aang saw to Roku. And so they had this really fun dialogue together. And so that's going to be really fun. And now that, Korra is all he has, he can actually talk to her more, I think, in order to get the Avatar state. This will obviously be something that would need to be brought up once we write the episodes, but I think it would be a lot of fun. And which brings us to our final thing, the little details. And when I say little details, I'm like, what am I talking about? I'm like, obviously, I didn't know all the villains by the time I finished Spirit of Earth last year. I didn't know, who did what happened, who was with who, and everything. And so just little details, like whatever happened to Mako or Bolin or Asami or Korra or Tenzin or anyone else. I don't want Spirit of Earth to be, completely intertwined with Korra, like what Korra was with Last Airbender, but you're going to want to hear this stuff, oh, look, that's a future Korra race cycle, or, oh, look, there's my cabbages. I actually have a reference to that in there. It's the little things, the things that show you that, hey, this is still part of a connected universe. Hearing the names of spirits you've already met, or places you've already been to. That's the little details that I think are going to be the fun things that you fans are going to enjoy. So I'm obviously going to have to change that. Now, obviously, I was actually going to say this for another video, but I decided to do it now because I was talking with a friend of mine who's also a big Legend of Korra fan, and I'm listing out these changes. He goes, dude, it's just, you basically broken your story. And the truth is I haven't. But he also asked, why don't you just rewrite it? Why don't you just rewrite everything? Why don't you just rewrite Spirit of Earth? And the answer is, I don't want to. But not for the reason you're thinking. Because it's not because of my arrogance or my pride or that I love Spirit of Earth, that it must be this way. I see it like this. If I rewrite it right now, like let's just say I end this video and I go and rewrite the whole thing, and then something else happens, like let's say there's a Korra comic, or heaven forbid a Korra movie that happens after the series ends, and then they do something that affects Spirit of Earth. What am I going to do then? Am I just going to rewrite it again, erase all those plot points that I just created to fix the first set of problems in Spirit of Earth? Where's the fun in that? So that honestly, there's that. But the more important thing is, let's just say my dream comes true, and Brian and Mike, who I still hope will read my stories or watch my videos and all that stuff, they come to me and we talk about Spirit of Earth, and they go, you have to change these things. So I'm like, yeah, that's part of the fun, and that's exactly what it is. Because all Spirit of Earth right now has been me. And that's fine, because it was my story, it was my characters, it was my love and passion of this show that made me drive it this way. But if this goes full scale, I don't want to do this on my own. And I don't just mean just the artists and the animators and everything else. I want a team of writers. I want, yeah, you think, oh, well, Brian and Mike wrote all the episodes. That's partially true. I'm sure they didn't write everything. You know, they had to rework dialogue, to talk with the characters, probably had other writers with them, and that's what I want. Whether it's just me, Brian, and Mike, or me, Brian, and Mike, and some other people, I have already had like 2 people come to me and say, hey, let's collab and let's make Spirit of Earth better. And I'm like, great, let's chat about this at least. And that's the thing is like I want a team of fans. I want a team of people saying, hey, let's make this the best it can because as I am not ashamed to admit that I'm a creative person, but I can only go so far. I won't think of everything, or if I do, it might take me longer. But if I have a team of people, whether it's me, Brian, and Mike, or me, Brian, Mike, and my buddy Blaine, or my buddy Wade, who's already offered to help and everything, uh, they can help me too. They can think of ideas I won't think of. And that's the beauty about writing is that you can write so much for yourself and it'd be great, but if you collaborate with people, you get the fans, you get your own little team avatar going, you can create better things. And that's why I don't change it. That's why I acknowledge the changes I'll need to make and I'm ready for them so that when I can pitch it to my Mike, when I say, hey, here's the plot point that we have to slightly alter, what do you think of this? I can give them the base plate and then we can run with it. And that's what Spirit of Earth is. I acknowledge that things have to change. A person said to me, wait a minute, your intro video says the eyes of the world turned to the Earth Kingdom. They're not the Earth Kingdom anymore. And I'm like, yeah, because I didn't make it. I didn't write this all out when the Earth Kingdom was officially kind of sort of divided up. I wrote it when it was still the Earth Kingdom. And it still could be the Earth Kingdom. I really don't know. And that's the thing. It's like, yes, things will have to change. But what this is, what Spirit of Earth is, at its core, is a base plate. The core of the story is still there. The core of what happens can still happen with the Spirit War and Rey's personal journey, Raya Aina, the conspiracy, which I still believe is one of the coolest villains and stories you can tell in an Avatar universe like this. I really believe that. It's still there. It can still be done. It's the little things. It's the things that mattered from Korra, like the Spirit Force, like the origins of the Avatar, like the Earth Kingdom and the Republic City and the Airbenders and the Avatar state. Those are things you have to put in to make sure it's continuity. But what I have is the base plate for which it can all be done from. Cool? Now you might be thinking, well, I still don't believe you. Mean what in your story needs to be changed? Well, I've already listed a couple of it, and I've actually gone into detail about it. But the next video is going to be I list the things that really doesn't need to be changed. I'm going to go more in depth with this because it's important to think, of what needs to change, but it's also good to know what stayed the same. And although I've listed off them here, I'm going to do another video to do it. And if you have any questions, if you have any thoughts, if you have realized something that from Spirit of Earth that needs to change, let me know, whether it's in the comments or it's comments on YouTube or IGN or Facebook or Twitter or whatever I post this on, because I'm going to be posting it everywhere. Let me know, because I want to talk with you about this. And then if I have to do a Q&A video, I will do a Q&A video. But in the meantime, I thank you for watching this video. I hope it answers some of your questions you might have had about Spirit of Earth. And I hope it gets you excited because we got a lot of things coming and we are really trying to make this movement happen. It is literally going to be the Spirit of Earth movement, to where we want this to reach new heights and new levels so that this reaches Brian and Mike. And hey, if it takes a year for them to say, let's just talk to this kid, or if it takes 2 years, I will wait. I waited years for Korra. I waited over a year for season 2 of Korra. I can wait my turn, let things happen, build this up as best I can, and then when it's ready, when they say, hey, let's do the 3rd series, why not? I will be here saying, here's Spirit of Earth, this is the base plate, let's make something really special. Sound like fun? I thought so too. So, I thank you for watching. I hope you'll stay tuned for the next video where I detail a lot of things that doesn't need to happen to Spirit of Earth for it to still remain awesome. And I hope to see you around.